Welcome to Case Closed, the Contingency Fee Podcast. On the show, our team of industry experts interviews contingency fee attorneys. You will discover everything from how they got started to the secrets of their success and what's working in today's marketplace. And now, here's the Case Closed Podcast.
Welcome to the Case Closed Podcast. I'm your guest host, Michael Clanin, and today we are joined with Tim Semelroth in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. How are you doing, Tim?
Great. Excited to be here.
Well, thanks for joining us. So just a little about you. So you were the first attorney in Iowa who was board certified by the National Board of Trial Advocacy, NBTA, in trucking accident law. He is currently in the Board of Regents for the Academy of Truck Accident Attorneys, ATAA, serves on the faculty for the Esteemed Trial Lawyers College, and often speaks at seminars and conventions about trucking accident law. So my first question for you is, how did you get into truck accident law?
Well, I've been practicing personal injury law my entire career, so 26 years. But the first big trial that I had was about 20 years ago, and it involved a gentleman from here in the Cedar Rapids area who was struck by a semi when the semi ran a stop sign in Benton County. And so we went to trial in that case. And that's when I first realized how different a truck wreck case is from a normal car accident crash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So what was it like to be the first attorney in Iowa to be board certified by the NBTA in trucking accident law?
Well, it meant that I had to go through a pretty extensive application process. I had to list all of the truck crash cases that I've handled over the years. I had to give references from lawyers who I had cases against, from judges who I've appeared in front of. And then that all culminated in a 2-day examination. And during that examination, I was tested not just on law and procedure, but also on the trucking industry. And so I was asked questions about technical issues like the type of engines that some tractor trailers have, to the laws that govern driving a commercial motor vehicle in the state of Iowa. And most of those are contained in the federal motor carrier safety regulations.
And you had no prior knowledge about the trucking industry, I'm guessing.
I've learned it all as a lawyer. So it's come through cases. And then a few years ago, I went to a truck driving school in Montana. And so I've actually driven a semi. I've backed it up. I tell people that obviously I wasn't that great at it because nobody offered me a job while I was there. But I've learned a lot about, the responsibility that goes with driving a semi truck, and that definitely helps me when I'm representing my clients in these cases.
Right. It's important that you've sat in their seat literally and kind of know what kind of knowledge they had and, circumstances and that, even though you probably weren't on the highway and all that.
Right. No, it was
made that personal connection with your clients.
Absolutely. And I have a lot of respect for driving truck is a very difficult job. And in a lot of ways, a truck driver can be set up to fail if a company tries to make he or she drive too many hours, or doesn't give them proper equipment, or ask them to do a route that really can't be done in that amount of time. And so what I've found over the years is that most truck wrecks occur not because a driver necessarily did something wrong on their own, but because of other factors in the transportation cycle that set them up to fail.
Right. So kind of give me an idea. I mean, you were the first in the state of Iowa, But how many other attorneys like you are there across the country or even in Iowa?
Well, I'm still the only attorney who's board certified in truck accident law in the state of Iowa. Like I said, it requires a lot of experience that you have to document. It requires going through the testing. And the reality is that most lawyers, once they take the bar exam, which they do at the start of their career, they're not really interested in sitting down and taking a test of that magnitude. But in answer to the first part of your question, I believe right now there are about somewhere between 50 and 60 lawyers in the United States who are board certified in truck accident law.
Okay, all right. So very exclusive.
Yes, and I know all of them. We attend the same meetings. We get asked to speak at the same conferences, and so that's very helpful because collectively we are able to share a lot of information that we learn from our cases, share insights with each other about how to better represent our clients. And so the Academy of Truck Accident Attorneys is a group that I'm very proud to be a part of, very proud to be part of their Board of Regents, and I think they do really good work.
Wow, okay. So what are some of the most interesting cases that you've taken on?
Well, they all are interesting in the sense that my clients are all private, individuals. They are affected in different ways after a crash, whether it is, so sometimes you're learning medicine because of the nature of their injuries, and you've got to be able to explain that to a jury. Sometimes it is learning about their jobs. I've represented people over the past 26 years from all walks of life. And in order to ask the jury for compensation for how their career has been affected, I need to know something about their career. So oftentimes I'm interviewing their supervisors, their coworkers, and I've learned everything from working as an engineer at a water treatment plant to representing a sound engineer for a major country music singer. And so in all of those cases, to really represent my clients, I need to know what their life was like before and how it's been changed because of these crashes.
Right. What's that one case that it just sticks with you?
You're asking me to, it'd be like picking between my kids.
No, well, yeah, exactly. I'm telling you, pick a kid. No.
The reality is that any case of mine that has gone to trial has meant that I've spent years getting to know my clients and learning what they've been through, and so communicating that with the jury. So it's hard for me to pick just one over the years, but I've represented people who I really think of as heroes, the way that they've battled back after an injury and tried to create the best life that they can for themselves despite what they've been through.
Do you have a case that was very challenging? I mean, not that all cases aren't challenging, but is there one that just you thought you knew how it was going to go, but it didn't go the way you wanted it?
Oh, sure. I mean, the reality is that if a case is a sure thing in my line of work, the trucking company will usually settle. And so any case that you take to trial means that they think that they might have a chance to win. And ultimately, we're putting on our case, they're putting on their case, and 8 citizens, from Iowa are deciding, who's right and who's wrong. And so definitely I've had, I can't sit here and claim that I've won every trial I've ever had. That would be a mistake. In fact, 26 years ago, I lost the very first case I ever tried. It wasn't a trucking case, but I can tell you everything about that case. It's probably harder for me to forget my losses than it is to try to remember all my wins.
Right, definitely. So what was your childhood look like? I mean, did you grow up in the Cedar Rapids area?
I did. My dad worked in a factory here in Cedar Rapids. My mom was a home economics teacher. I had never met a lawyer until I was in Mr. Efting's social studies class at St. Pius Elementary School. And he said that there was this new activity that the Bar Association was starting. This was over 40 years ago, called mock trial. And they brought in lawyers. And the deal was, Mr. Efting said, if you tried out for this activity, you would get a day off school. And that's all I needed to hear. I signed up, and that's the first time I ever knew anything about the legal system. And I was hooked, and I've wanted to be a lawyer ever since.
Thank you. That was elementary teacher?
Middle
Or,
school.
okay, middle school.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. What's the biggest adversity that you've had to overcome?
I'm pretty lucky in the sense that, I realized what I wanted to do with my life when I was in middle school. I met my wife first day of high school. I've got 3 healthy kids. I always tell people that I was lucky because, I was born, in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, to 2 parents who really did their best to give a good life to my siblings and myself. So, I mean, I've had tough times in cases, I've lost cases that I thought I should have won, or, I've had to work hard in my job. But compared to the people I represent, I hate to talk about any adversity because, I represent people who've, if they're calling me, they've just gone through the worst thing that's ever happened in their life, probably. And so mainly the work that I do makes me feel grateful for, the good health that I have and that my family has. And I just hope that, if something terrible happens to me, I'll be able to handle it with the grace that my clients do.
Right. What's the best advice that you've ever gotten?
Wow.
Or
That's a
yeah, that's a deep.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be anything related to your profession, right? I mean, it could be anything.
Sure. Let's see. You've stumped me here because I've gotten a lot of good advice. I've had a lot of good mentors over the
right.
year. And I think from a professional standpoint, it is never write anything that you wouldn't want to appear on the front page of the paper. Sometimes tempers can get heated during litigation or during a trial, and it's natural to want to lash out or show your anger. And I'm lucky, both my parents are still living, and I try to live my life in such a way that if there's ever an article about me in the Cedar Rapids Gazette and my parents read it, they're not gonna be embarrassed.
Right. Well, that's a good philosophy to live by anyway, So what do you attribute your success to?
Well, as I said, most of it is luck. It's lucky to be born into the family that I was born into. Luckily, I was in the right social studies class, in middle school. I was lucky that I ran into my wife the first day of high school in study hall. My kids will tell you they think I work too much, too hard, but I always remind them that I get to spend most of my days working in air conditioning or in a heated building. And my dad worked for over 40 years in a factory, and when the factory ultimately closed, I asked him, I said, well, if it hadn't closed, would you have stayed working there? And he said, I don't know that I could have taken one more winter, working in that factory. And so it's probably good. And so I'm just really lucky. And I found a job that I love to do, and it's challenging and interesting, and I get to meet, great people. And so that's luck is probably the biggest factor in where I am today.
Is there anything that drives you crazy about your business?
Oh, sure. I mean, anybody who's ever had to make an insurance claim, knows that dealing with insurance companies can be challenging.
Mhm.
In a sense, that's what I'm doing most days. Whether I'm talking to my client's health insurance company or their auto insurance company, trying to get certain things covered, whether it's talking to the insurance company for the trucking company. They are, one of the largest industries in the world because they're very good at holding on to their money. And in order to get a claim paid out, you have to jump through a lot of hoops. And so, there are some days where that's really frustrating. But like I said, it's still easier than digging ditches.
Right, right, definitely. What do you know now that you wish you would have known 26 years ago?
Hmm. Well, I wish that I would have kept a better list of all the people that I've represented over the years, because my business is a competitive business. When something terrible happens, people, nobody goes shopping for a personal injury lawyer, for a truck wreck lawyer when they're not in crisis. And so a lot of times, if they don't know a lawyer that they trust, they are, going on the internet, maybe they see something on TV. And the reality is that I think the people who can judge me best as a lawyer are the clients that I've represented over the years. And, during the first 10 years of my practice, I would close a case and, we'd shake hands as friends, and then maybe I wouldn't see him again. And I realized that those are the people that know me best, know what kind of lawyer I am. And, I wish I would have done a better job of staying in touch with them. Send them a Christmas card, send them birthday cards, just let them know that I'm still around and still helping people like I help them. And because my best cases don't come from somebody who just sees my website for the first time or sees something on TV. My best cases are referrals from people who I've represented before.
And that was my next question, is how do you find your clients, or how did the clients find you? And it sounds like a lot of it is referral based.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, this is a bad truck crash is potentially a very big claim. And so people, recognize that. And so if they know a lawyer, they're going to talk to a lawyer. So I get about 25% of my cases from other lawyers because I specialize in this.
Correct.
And they know
Right.
I specialize in it. And then, probably another 40% of my cases come from people who have been given my name by somebody who I've represented in the past, or is familiar with my firm for one reason or another. It's really only, what does that leave? 35%? 35% of the people who, go on the internet and look us up, or, see something on TV, or something like that. So about a third, 35% or so come from the general public who's doing research in one way or another. But the majority of the people who I represent have been recommended by other lawyers or by past clients.
Right. How do you help the next generation of attorneys? Because you're not always going to be here.
Right. Well, we keep hiring more lawyers for our firm. By September, we'll have 15 lawyers in our firm. We currently have offices in Cedar Rapids and Des Moines. We're opening an office before the end of the year in Dubuque. And obviously the lawyers that we're hiring, are younger. And so we try to do our best to mentor them. But remember how I said the reason that I realized I wanted to be a lawyer was because of an activity called mock trial. Well, I still coach with that teacher who introduced me to mock trial, almost 40 years ago. I still coach middle school with him. I still coach high school mock trial, and I've been doing that ever since I got out of law school. So I have over the years probably 20 former high school students and over 40 middle school students who've gone on to law school. And it's I've been lucky enough now that my own kids, I've had a chance to coach them. And so I try to, pass on at least the professionalism and
Sure.
and the public speaking and the critical thinking skills to middle school and high school kids through the mock trial program.
So are any of your kids going into the same business?
Not as of yet.
Not yet. Okay.
As I mentioned to you, if you would ask them, what do you think about doing what dad does? They would say he works way too hard.
That's exactly why. Yeah.
So nobody has applied to law school yet. Who knows? There are 3 of them and there's still time, but I can't hide the fact that I work really hard, particularly from the people who live with me. And so they probably have a pretty good inside view into how hard you have to work in this business.
Right. Well, hey, Tim, before we close off the podcast, can you tell our listeners, how did they find you?
Well, the best way is through our website. The URL is fightingforfairness.com. My law firm's name is RSH Legal. And we, like I said, we represent people all over Iowa in injury and disability and employment law cases. And if you go to the website, we give out all sorts of free information. We send out free guides for almost every type of law that we practice, and people can call or fill out a form on fightingforfairness.com, and they'll hear back from us and we'll let them know what kind of assistance we can provide.
That's great. Is there anything you want our listeners to know that you haven't shared with us?
Well, I thought you might ask me this. The biggest mistake that I see people making is they think that a truck accident case is just a big car accident case. And so maybe they've heard that a lawyer did a good job handling a car accident case for a neighbor or a family member. And so they say, well, it happened on the road, so this person ought to be able to help me. And I speak all around the country, and the most popular topic that these conferences have me speak on is called the 8 ways to wreck your truck accident case. And it's all about teaching lawyers how you have to handle truck crash cases differently than car accident cases. And so all I would have to say is that, if somebody ever thinks they need to talk to a truck accident lawyer, make sure that you're actually talking to, a board certified truck accident lawyer. Don't just go to the guy who helped out your neighbor, because that person probably doesn't have the training or experience to do right by you.
Great. Well, Tim Semelroth with RSH Legal, thank you for taking the afternoon to have this discussion. This is Michael Clanin for the Case Closed podcast. Thank you for joining us today, and look forward to you on the next podcast.
Well, thanks. This was a great time, and I look forward to hearing you interview somebody next week.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Case Closed, the Contingency Fee Podcast. We hope you enjoyed listening to this week's guests and their insight. If you liked what you heard, please consider subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts. Case Closed, the Contingency Fee Podcast, is led by industry experts who unlock insights from the nation's top contingency fee attorneys. Each week on the show, the guests share how they got started, secrets of their success, and what's working in today's marketplace. Guests on the Case Closed podcast include successful contingency fee attorneys that will share their secrets so you can close more cases. Tune in each week for a dynamic conversation about winning legal strategies that will grow your business.